Have you ever had an itch that you just couldn't scratch? Have you ever deeply looked into the abyss and wondered if anything was gazing back? Have you ever thought, just for a second, what lies beyond the veil? These are all questions asked by the word bearers during the Horus heresy, and that's what today's show is going to be about. Welcome, everybody. This is 5 Up Recovery. I'm your host, Carter Reynolds, and this is Thursdays with Horus. This week we are talking about the word bearers. One of the coolest and most unique factions. They're kind of like the very first Chaos Space Marines. I would say up until a certain point, it was really their heresy before Horus took the reins, and Chaos kind of took him over as well. But if you look, the first breadcrumbs of it were all placed long before Horus fell. And, everyone's favorite villain, Erebus, was, there planting seeds very early on in different legions, and especially in his own, with Lorgar and the rest of his legion. But yeah, let's jump right in. Grab yourself a beverage. I got my coffee here. If you got a brush, pick it up. If you are just kicking your feet up, go for it. We're going to talk about the word bearers in lore, a good book to pick from them, and then we're going to go in and see how my Alpha Legion army looks at their units to steal. And I, of course, wrote a list. I made some characters, to give the list character, and I'll go over it a little bit. I'll post it, of course, in the comments at the end for everybody to look at. But yeah, starting with the lore of the word bearers is, it's like anytime you look at the Horus heresy, or if you look at the Siege of Terra, there's a chance that the word bearers are in there or directly have influenced it somewhere. Lorgar and his legion learned about chaos before anyone else did, long before Horus fell on Davin to a chaos weapon, and Erebus came in and, pretty much took Horus's soul on a little journey and had him fall into chaos fully. But there was Erebus, right? It was Erebus pushing all these rocks up the hill the whole time. Really good book to read is The First Heretic. Aaron Dembski-Bowden, just one of the top writers, probably the best chaos writer out there. It's their whole backstory. It begins their journey, kind of kicks off the heresy. There's some really, really cool bits in there. I don't want to ruin anything. But like one of the biggest revelations of what happened to the Primarchs, it's like, it could be what happened to there, or it could have been just like the warp messing with their perceptions. But really good book to check out, I would say. The First Heretic. Immediately after that one comes up No Fear, which is kind of an Ultramarines book, but it's Ultramarines versus the word bearers, and it's 100% like the slights. In the beginning of the First Heretic, the Ultramarines are sent to censor the word bearers because they're worshiping the Emperor as if he was a deity. Just, big irony if you're a 40K fan. So there's always been this stitch in the side with the word bearers with the Ultramarines, that they were the ones the Emperor sent down, not to like destroy and raise and, like eradicate them completely, but just to destroy one city, topple all the monuments. And, the word bearers always had this like this chip on their back from, for the Ultramarines. So, No Fear is their vengeance made full. The Ultramarines are having a Horus, of course, has set up his little traps all over the galaxy, and the Ultramarines are supposed to be docking all these ships, and they're about to go out on a invasion of orcs to fight the last orcs post Olenor. This giant. They're all kind of wondering why the biggest Ultramarines fleet of all time is being pulled just to do some cleanup, but they're dutiful sons. They just keep it going. Word bearers show up and pretty much just decimate the entire fleet. The word bearers come in, they have like a cultist run ship, and it just plummets through. It doesn't even turn on its guns. It just drives through all of the, like a Forge world, all these cruise ships docking, like mayhem. It sets off like an extinction level event on the planet, and kicks off the Ruin Storm, which then splits the galaxy in half and stops warp travel, stops astropaths, cuts off all communications so that the heresy can really take off still behind this veil. So, like, yeah, the Word Bears are always at these very extremely key points of the heresy. The last book I would recommend, I still haven't read it yet, so, you know, kind of, but it's Betrayer, which we talked about last week with the World Eaters there. So that book is, you know, pretty much all I've heard about is that it's Karn and Argel Tal, like, best bros. And Argel Tal, you know, if we're talking about characters in, before we segue into characters that I've made for the rules, characters in the Word Bears, the big ones, of course, Erebus. Everyone knows him. You hate him or you love him. Probably hate him. You hate to love him. He, you know, he's really like the puppet master of a lot of the heresy. Like, he makes his Primarch fall to chaos. He pushes Horus to fall to chaos. He sets up the lodges, you know, the warriors' lodges, which is where the seeds of heresy kind of begin and all that. Erebus is always there. And then kind of on the opposite side of the coin is Argel Tal. Argel Tal is like an extremely heroic character. He's the first Gal Vorbak. Gal Vorbak are Marines that have chaos, or they're space Marines that have taken a demon into them. And then they're, you know, kind of half soldier, half demon at this point. Gal Vorbak is their name. I think it's after a biker gang, I believe, on their home planet. They're a great unit. I'll talk about them when we get to the list building and whatnot. But Argel Tal's like the first one, and he's like a good guy. You know, he's fighting because he wants to raise the Imperium up, you know, take it out of the tyrannical clutches of the Emperor. And, you know, it's kind of almost a tragic character because he's fighting, you know, so hard as a hero on the wrong side. You know, it's high drama, good stuff. Argel Tal, he's big in the first Heretic. Betrayer's him, like, buddy cop with Karn the Betrayer. You know, there's that name. But, you know, those are 3 good books. And then anytime if you read The Siege, the Word Bearers are there. They're holding Horus's hand, guiding him almost more than his own legions at that point. So just a cool legion. They are the blueprint for Chaos Space Marines. They are, like, absolutely where these, like, warp-fueled Space Marines came from. So, moving into the units themselves and whatnot. First, you know, just kind of talking about the options that they get. You know, going real quick with everyone's probably, you got the books, you've read at this point. You know, their Legion Tactica is that they always get +1 to their combat resolution, which I think is just dynamite. It seems very small, but, like, when you start taking in things like, you know, even your dreadnoughts get it. And dreadnoughts are almost always, like, you know, they're almost always outnumbered, so there's, like, the points are stacked against them. But, you know, it's like almost like having a Vexilla, like a double Vexilla on your troop squads, or any unit is going to have this +1 to their combat resolution, which will tie games, or just give you that just enough to get over, or honestly will push their loss so far that they're really going to fail their leadership check. With the difference of the combat resolution, it's a really nice little, like, small thing that I think adds up more than people give it credit for. The gambit they have is that they're in a challenge, they can take a willpower check to juice themselves up, and it actually lasts for the entire challenge phase, not just the first strike phase, but it says for the whole challenge phase. And if you fail, you know, it's like you take some wounds. It's almost like a little miniature Perils of the Warp. And then their Apex detachment is really good. It's 2 elite slots, which is something you kind of want to take anyways, and then 2 prime troops. Prime slots are super key, and that's kind of what these videos are talking about. You know, kind of the whole point is, like, what to do with your prime slots when you're building lists, you know, but be it for the characters or for the units and stuff, and how to, like, really add that, like, characterful charm with them. So 2 prime slots on your troops is really good. I made a list. You know, going into the list itself, I called it the Faithful Host. And, you know, since I kind of wanted to lean into the, you know, your Legion Tactica drives you towards melee combat, since you're always getting that combat resolution. So I went pretty ham. I don't know if it's a good list or a bad list. It's just I took big squads of despoilers, a bunch of jump pack units, like demons, Gal Vorback, like everything is a melee threat. There's almost no shooting to it whatsoever, except for some tanks that are, I got some like anti-tank tanks in there, so you can be popping transports and, taking out their scary vehicles and things like that as well. But for the most part, it's just big blocks of guys with, either special weapons or big troops with special weapons and heroes, sprinkled in. I think it'd be fun. I think it's I don't think it's an abusive list. I think that there's counters out to it and things like that, but I think it'd be really fun to play. It's even like almost more, when I did the World Eaters list last time, I had a lot of armor and a lot of like, Spartan and a Land Raider and these, beefy transports and, kind of blunt vehicles. This, I went almost everyone on foot. I took no transports whatsoever. Probably a bad call, but I think it's just kind of like in mass. I see your jump pack units flying forward. I see, Gal Vorback crushing into things as your hammer, along with, your despoilers are just pouring over objectives, just taking objectives as best they can. I even got 2 things of demons that can be summoned in, mid-battle and stuff. Just like real word bearers, full, demonic annihilation is the whole thing. But let's get into the characters real quick. So I almost took Erebus. I wanted to take him so bad, especially because he counts as an esoterist, which is the unit that helped you summon demons. So it was like the first thing but the whole point of this is making it your own list. I want to spend very little time talking about things I don't like on this channel, but I won't even say I don't like it, but the only thing that kind of, the only small myth I've got with this edition is that your Praetor, your high command slot, is very important for unlocking your Apex detachment and your reaction, but outside of war gear, there's no way to make them special or unique. They don't get a prime slot, all these really interesting prime slots and really cool things you can do with your characters, and you're pretty much throwing them onto your centurions and your librarians and your heralds, and because the Praetor's doing his job, like buying you all the stuff for your army, but it kind of pushes you towards taking named characters, because the named high command characters are very unique, very cool, do bring a lot of flavor and, have their unique gambits and stuff. And I understand from a game design, this is a historical game. You want to pick up the first heretic and you want to go pick a battle from it and play through it. But the whole point of this show is to make our own guys and stuff like that. So, I started out with my Praetor. I gave him a jump pack and a pair of lightning claws. And you actually can make them a psyker, I found out. So I tagged him with the burning lore. So, there I'm saying that you can't make your Praetor unique, and then they gave me an option to do it like right off the rip. So yeah, good on you, word bears. So I've got the Praetor with a pair of lightning claws. He is going to be embedded in a retinue of, into a Vanguard assault squad. So they've got, weapon skill 5, 2 wounds, the Vanguard rule, and you got this Praetor. So it's a nice package for him to go flying around. Big scary unit. Next up, I have an Esoterist, because I didn't take Erebus. So an Esoterist is a psyker with a really cool Void Darts ability. It's like, only AP 4, but it has like critical hits and force damage. So you've got the ability to like pop this up to like 3 damage on these darts. It's pretty cool. And besides that, he also has a rule, or his special power, when you do a willpower check, you can actually increase your reserves rolls for your demons that are coming in. So of course, he also unlocks a special detachment where you can take demons. So I took 2 squads of brutes. I don't know what they do. They sound cool. They sound fun. They just look like, kind of like Gal Vorback, just big, bulky infantry that are really hard to chew through, like tougher than I didn't really have Terminators in this list, so like I figured the demons are kind of like my Terminator stoppers, you know, or Terminator equivalents for just getting in the way and being chunky, lots of wounds to get through. And then I took a lot of Power Fists because, you know, you figure you're going to be fighting Terminators. You might as well, you know, you take a Power Fist, you might as well take a Power Fist, in my opinion. I'm a little biased, but getting back to the characters. So we got our Esoterist. He's got an Archaeotech pistol, which is pretty cool. Went with a Force Axe for that AP2. So he's a, you know, still pretty scary melee threat. On the rest of my command, I took a Herald because it's just, you know, it's Dark Apostle, you know, Word Bearers, Chaos Space Marines. You imagine that there's these guys, you know, the Word Bearers are like covered in writing and covered in scriptures, and they've carved scripture into their armor, and, you know, Lorgar's tattooed scripture across his face. So like a herald is, of course, reading scripture, you know, just his, you know, reading the lords of chaos, and, you know, his, you know, just turning people on the battlefield with just like, you know, this blasphemy. It just sounds really cool for a herald. And then I took a librarian because, you know, lots of psych, you know, heavy psychers, you know, lots of warp energy flying around. They're bringing in demons. There's perils of the warps happening left and right. Like, you know, you're probably going to perils once or twice a battle, but it's going to be fun. Librarian, I took, once again, a Force Axe with him, and I actually gave him my Prime slot. And I went, instead of Paragon of Battle, I went Combat Veterans. Pretty much just to give him a boost to his willpower. You know, just +1 willpower is really, really going to you know, it's, I think, pops it up to I want to say a 10. Yeah, it goes up to willpower 10. And then it also boosts his leadership to 9 and is cool to 8. So he's still a good leader character embedded in the unit. But now he's really good at pulling off his special powers. I gave him Biomancy for that melee attack. And then I gave him Telekinesis for a Telekine shield. So defensive on the, you know, they're on a transport, so you got this defensive dude that can throw up a bubble shield around them. And then when he gets into combat, he can buff everybody on the charge to get +1 strength and +1 toughness. You know, just a good offense, a good defense. Cool character with a Force Axe. And then Biomancy also gives you like that like tank destroying punch, you know, the Biomantic Slam. So yeah, just, you know, Esoterist, Herald, and Librarian. Very Word Bearers. Going into the list itself, for my troops, I got a Prime slot in the the detachment, the Crusade detachment. I got a Prime slot for my troops, and I took the special Prime slot that you can take for Word Bearers, which is Impact Strength. You know, I've kind of talked about in the past how there are not a ton of advantages to do charging, but you know, anytime you can get them, take them, and this is crazy. So I got a 15 block assault squad. Also, for any power weapon I took a power maul. Just, you know, big hammers. I don't know. It just seemed Word Bearers, you know, maces, and just like heavy-handed. You know, just I went with the vibe. So these guys have Impact Strength. You got a bunch of power mauls in there. They can really punch up with the power mauls and the Impact Strength. Next up, I took the Apex detachment that the Word Bearers get. That's going to have 2 troops choices and 2 elites choices. For my troops, they're both Prime slots. So I took 2 Despoiler squads, one 15 block and one 20 block. You know, just big old line squads. Once again, I stuck as many power mauls in there as I could, you know, on the sergeant in the squad itself. And both of them are Prime, so I once again took Impact Strength for, you know, that Word Bearers Zealous Assault. It's just going to let, you know, relatively cheap melee guys hit a lot harder than people expect. You know, your only weapon skill 4 still, but you're going to be hitting, you know, your chainswords are strength 5 on the charge. Like, just that 3 up to wound is really going to help you out when, like, going into other legionaries and things like that. And the power mauls, like, go up to, like, plus, like, 7 strength. You can even, like, smack around some dreadnoughts with, you know, despoilers. Who'd have thunk it? Just make sure you get that charge in. The other 2 elite slots I took 10 Galvorback. They're big. They got tainted weapons that have phage strength on them, so you're draining the strength of things you're fighting. They still have bolters, you know, so they can run around on objectives. They've got Vanguard. That's one thing I didn't really talk about. Well, I'll get to it at the end of units I want to steal for Alpha Legion. We'll finish with that. The other elite I took was a 10 block Veteran Assault Squad. I talked about earlier. Nice, you know, my Praetor's cushioning It's got 3 power fists in there, 3 paired lightning claws, 3 dudes with chain swords just to absorb the damage, and then the main guy also took a power fist on the veteran. So there's 4 power fists in that squad. That should be able to knock around some Terminators. That should be able to knock around some Dreadnoughts for you. And yeah, the last thing I did, I already talked about taking 2 squads of Brutes with the Demonic Manifestation. And then I took a fast attack slot so that I could get in some Ashen Circle. These are kind of like, oh man, like your War Crime squad. We don't really have, they took away the old ones. What were they called? You know, the unique faction got to keep their War Crime squads, even if the generic one went away. But the Ashen Circle are great. They've got, you know, you can take Phosphex bombs on the Iconoclast. They all have these crazy hand flamers that cause panic. They have axe rakes. Their weapons have critical hits built into them. So just a really solid unit with jump packs, you know, flying around, just harrying units or going in and, you know, kind of cleaning up where you need them. They also have vanguards. This list has 3 vanguard units in it, and then 2 line units. So you got plenty of scoring potential. You know, even though you don't have transports, I think this list could pretty much take a lot of, be like a take all comers. And the final auxiliary detachment I took 2 Predators with twin las cannons and las cannon sponsons. Just, you know, 4 las cannons per vehicle, a semi-tough, you know, carrier for it, something to deal with vehicles, something to pop transports. And I took a Sicker Inventor for the exact same reason. It's got a really nice laser on it, the neutron beam laser, but also even if it can't destroy the target, it's got shock suppressed built into it. So you can disrupt their really good armor, even if you can't pop it on in a turn. So yeah, that's the list. It's, you know, just melee across the board, just charge everything. Don't get in your own way. Don't roadblock yourself when you're playing it, you know. I swear every time I do this segment, it makes me want to build a list. I immediately wanted to make word bears. I mean, I think every Chaos player secretly wants to do a word bears list somewhere. But yeah, we'll finish off with units I want to steal. Either go really well with the Alpha Legion. Alpha Legion, as I said, don't have any Vanguard units, don't have any melee units special to them. So both these units kind of check those boxes. You know, jump pack units that with hand flamers and, you know, critical hit weapons. That's really crucial. And then Gal Vorback are just like one of the scariest, toughest things on the board. So I probably would go with some Gal Vorback with, or no, you know what? I would go Ashen Circle only because Alpha Legion really don't. I'm trying to avoid chaos with them. They really do not have much lore-wise. You know, there's not a lot of them falling to chaos and stuff like that. So I think I would kind of keep the demonic units by word bears, but I would steal for sure the Ashen Circle for the utility they have. That is the show. Word bears, you know, I could probably talk for like 2 more hours about them. So much. They are the bolts that pin everything together in the Heresy. Tons of fun, really cool Legion. And I will catch you all next week. Oh, next week I'm going to do the Sons of Horus. I rolled off camera this time because I didn't want to mess up. Last time I got 16 and 17 screwed up. So I'm going to go right into the Sons of Horus next week. So yeah, we're doing a lot of traders in a row. And we'll catch some loyalists here soon. All right, everybody, take care. Good hobby. Have a good one. I'll catch you all later.